Mm-hmm. No one in the world is going to be as motivated as a parent to find a cure for their child. Erik has a rare disease, which is incredibly rare. There are only 40 cases in the world. It's not possible that we will just see what happens with a disease that has no cure, that is lethal. We're not going to just wait, right? We moved to Switzerland 12 years ago. Before that, we lived in the US, and also we grew up in Hungary. And moving to Switzerland was a fairly easy decision. We came with work, and we fell in love with the country. My first son was born. He was healthy. He was already born here in Trelle, and we were very happy. And we said, we want another kid. And the pregnancy with Erik went exactly the same way as with Mark. So I was so confident. I felt like now finally I knew what I'm doing. Mark will be so happy to have a little brother. So it was really idyllic. And this is where even the beginning, like when I look back some of the family photos I took before the diagnosis, I was like, oh, we were so happy because we didn't know. And he was developing well, and everything seemed fine. And then you get to the point where all of this is just falling apart, and you question, like, how come they couldn't realize this during your pregnancy, for example? So he was between 5 and 6 months old, and we were having a walk outside, just like we do every day. We came back, he was asleep. I like to leave children outside in the fresh air when they sleep. And then he had a convulsion there in the stroller. Like, I didn't know at the time what it is, but he was shaking. It was really shocking to see. And I remember, like, I just grabbed him outside of the stroller. We ran inside. I called 144, and I was just like following the instructions I'm getting. And I remember me saying his name repeatedly, like, Erik, Erik. That's an experience I think no parent should ever have. Not knowing, not being able to help, and just waiting for the ambulance to arrive is, every moment seems very long. I remember they told me, like, they are 4 minutes out, it's going to be fine, he's breathing, but you just think it's not fine, like, you cannot help. We were hospitalized. They did MRI, they did blood test, they did CSF, they did EEG. And then they said, okay, because we don't have anything based on which we could make a diagnosis, we will do the genetic testing, and then we will see, because most likely this is genetic. I checked a lot of diseases, and I was like, maybe it's this one, this is curable, this is fine, there is treatment, so please, let it be this one. And when you receive a diagnosis, they tell you the name, you still don't know anything, so I was like, okay, aspergin. And then they said it's metabolic, and I was like waking from a dream, like, but didn't we say the metabolic panel was negative? And I kept on asking them, okay, but then what do we do? Then what do we do? And then he said, like, take him home, make him comfortable, love him, and we will see at year 2, year 3 how he is. And you're like, no, this is not possible. Of course we love him. It's not about that, but it's not possible that we will just see what happens with a disease that has no cure, that is lethal. We're not going to just wait, right? So you have this feeling of, at least I had this feeling of, this cannot happen like this. We have to have better means of managing such diseases, but actually you don't. When they shared the diagnosis, they told us it's asparagine synthetase deficiency. And the doctor started to explain that it's a metabolic disease in which cells are missing the enzyme that synthesizes asparagine. So the cells are not getting enough asparagine, and they suffer. They also mention that there is not much literature or knowledge around this disease because it's so rare. A lot of children, they don't survive the first year. What gave me hope even in that time is that the severe cases, it was indicated that the seizures start on the first day of life. Erik was going without seizures for a month, almost. I was like, this is quite good. What we have is much better than what I read there. And these were the small signs already that yes, it's a lethal disease. Those children with heavy seizure burden, they don't reach developmental milestones or very little, or they regress fast. But Erik was developing and still is developing, so we are still seeing progress in his development. Erik takes 2 medications which are against epilepsy, so they are stopping the seizures. One is this one, it's valproate, and then the other one is called topiramate. These are syrups, so he receives them this 3 times per day and then this 2 times per day. And then this one is a small pill that now he can swallow, and he gets that in the evening. So these are the meds he's taking for now. And then whenever there is a prolonged seizure, we have the emergency medication that we take everywhere with us. There is not a moment in the day when he can be alone without someone supervising, because epilepsy can be also silent, so the seizures can happen in a fairly silent, unnoticeable way. And because you need to time them and you want to be there, you have to always keep an eye on Erik. So he cannot be alone, not even for like 2-3 minutes. We do 2 times per week physiotherapy, and we also do ergotherapy, which is a little bit like occupational therapy. He will have once per week osteo. These are very important because he has severe hypotonia, and because of that it's very difficult for him to move. So the motor development is very delayed. He's a little bit always floppy. But now he can sit, which is very good. Time is of essence, I think, because the disease is progressive. We would need to find a cure as fast as we can. And it feels like now we have the chance to advance much better than, let's say, 10 years ago, when this was unheard of. Now we have good examples that since probably 2018-19, families and parents started to enter into drug development, and they succeeded because we can see that now those first clinical trials are happening. I have no doubt that the research team will find a cure, but I doubt every day whether we will be on time for Erik, because we know the earlier he would receive it, the better. But for sure, if it will definitely help other children. Even if we will be late for Erik, it will help others. So it gives me a lot of purpose when I say this, but this is probably why Erik is also here, to help other families avoid the same day today that we have. I really wish that for them. Typical day would be we all wake up, we start the breakfast, so Erik can be with us for breakfast, we feed him, and then my older son Mark goes to daycare, and either in the morning or a little bit later during the morning we have a nurse coming for 2 hours, so this gives me the chance to get a lot of work done. And I have also 2 hours of support from the nurses who come in the afternoon, and then in between I either have my mother-in-law or I try to have a babysitter with us who can look after Erik. But because of Because of Erik's condition, I work always in the same room where my mother-in-law or the nurses are, just to make sure I'm there and then I can help. Mark is 4 years old and he's really the sunshine of this house, and I think he helps greatly us to cope with the everyday. He knows Erik has epilepsy and he knows it comes with seizures. He has seen a seizure before. It's very important that he knows what it is, and we don't hide anything. If he asks a question, I respond. My husband and I used to work full-time. Then with the schedules and with Erik's condition, it's not possible to do 100%, so we do 80%, both of us. It's a lot of flexibility around how we make a phone call or a video conference for work. Does that happen, while feeding Erik, for example, or driving? És a pénteket se tudom még, hogy mikor jönnek a nővérek.
Oké.
De pénteken itthon vagy?
Pénteken itthon vagyok.
Pénteken jön az oszteó első alkalommal. Azt mondta, hogy olyan 9:30 körül fog ideérni. Ez nincs berakva, mindjárt be is rakom a naptárunkba. 9:30 oszteó. The bill for gene therapies in general are enormous. If there is an approved drug, it can easily cost one dose between $2 to $3 million. Good news, the gene replacement therapy, you only need to give one dose, but then that one dose will be astronomical in terms of cost. Therefore, the accessibility of gene therapies, even when they are approved, are very much limited by what insurance covers in a certain country. For us, it's going to be very similar. We start from the research, which is $500,000, and then this covers the first year. The first year is less expensive because we don't need the same quality of product as we will need at the end of the process, when the gene therapy is actually produced. And this is where the costs tend to skyrocket, and we will need probably $2 million for that one dose to be produced. The first story I found was Mila. So a girl in the US, and actually she was the first one who received the medication called Milasen, and it was developed for her. It's a different technique to ours, but I read that it was very much driven by the mom. That's amazing that parents do that parents set up a foundation, they contact the researchers, and actually they drive the research. They are the motor of the research. So immense inspiration, and then I said, okay, we need to do something very similar. And we started looking into how to set up a foundation, or as we realized, the form of an association is better in Switzerland.
Oh, isso é super!
I sent a lot of emails and I targeted hospitals who are involved in gene therapy, like the team in Philadelphia, like the team of Gosh in the UK, so Great Ormond Street Hospital. I targeted universities who are involved with medical research, Boston, again London. I sent some emails in Canada, in Australia as well. And I also targeted pharmaceuticals and biotechs who are developing gene therapy. I heard back from most of the hospitals, from most of the universities, and hardly any of the pharma players. There was one biotech who responded to the emails I sent, and that was Ultragenics. They organize a boot camp every year 2 times in the US, where they invite 20 patient-led non-profit organizations who are working on gene therapy development with the intention of sharing best practices and really educating the parents on drug development process. So November I went to San Francisco to attend the boot camp, and there were 19 organizations from the US, and I was the only one coming from Europe. To some extent, everyone can do this. It's really the motivation that brings and drives it forward. Obviously, if you have some skills, I'm a marketeer, I speak English, getting quite good at French, but it's really just the willingness, I think. I don't give up. I refuse to give up. And it was always the case, no matter whether it was a business case, no matter whether it was like learning a new language, or now it's really finding the cure for my son. The stakes are different, but it's the same relentless approach that I think brings the results. With the research teams came also the proposal on funding and their funding request. And it was enormous. I knew I had to find 500,000, and I thought, this is a lot of money, but surely there is a way. From my hairdresser to the local butcher to the local grocery shop, everyone put a small donation jar out for Erik. They shared our story with their customers. They were really getting engaged. And then you see, okay, this is what my network can bring to the association, which was, I think, at the time around probably 30 to 40,000 we managed to get to. And you could see the momentum building with a couple of articles going out, and then people reaching out from various parts of Switzerland trying to help or just sending money. The largest donation we got was 12,000. So this gives you a perspective of how many donations we need in order to get to 2 million this year. It was incredibly touching to see that everyone contributed, and everyone is probably 6,000 people, but it felt like everyone is with us. I no longer felt like this is a journey that is lonely. No, this is not a journey that I walk alone. Finding the teams working on potential cures or modalities for this disease was not easy. One thing led to another, and I think the key challenge in the beginning was just not knowing what's available, not knowing what type of modalities, what type of researches could help Erik and other children suffering from this disease. Drug repurposing came as an idea because gene therapy takes a lot of time. The type of therapy is quite risky. Look at a biotech in the US. It's called Phenomenex.
Okay.
So I don't
have background in biology or chemistry.
No, I don't have any science background. I mean, I'm a marketeer, but
I would never say this.
But I was always impressed by the work of the scientists at Phenomenex as well. So I wanted to tell you about 3 projects. One is in the UK, which is with the team you have already met.
Yes.
So Sarah is leading the ASO workflow, and then we have Professor Joanne, who is leading the development of the AAV treatment, so the gene therapy for the disease. And these 2 projects are slightly separate. They will be running parallel. This is happening in the UK. And then we have Dr. Ribier and Professor Jabadon at the Biocampus.
Okay.
So in Geneva, and they are establishing a cell line.
Okay.
So if any of the teams anywhere in the world would like to do a study on the cell line, we can.
Okay, that's great.
So that's good. I wanted to ask you, what are the steps you are taking now with the research? So if you could just briefly tell me a little bit more about what is happening now.
Yes. So we know that there is genetic mutation. We know in which part of the DNA it is and which part of the gene, but we don't know what are the functional consequences in the protein. So what we're trying to figure out is how this mutation is affecting protein function. And then we are going to make the protein in the tube and test its activity and test how the activity changes with and without mutation. So when we establish this, we will try drug repurposing. So we will use already approved FDA drugs to see if we can reverse the phenotype or loss of function of this mutated protein. So we're going always from more simple stuff to more complex. So first from the tube, Drosophila, and then we will have a mouse model with the same disease, with the same point mutation.
Naive question. Can it happen that you find a compound that would not need testing in animals and for efficacy, because it has a very good safety profile already, and we could give directly to Erik, so we save time?
So this is up to medical doctors, but it's considered and it's advised to do these animal models just to see as a proof of efficacy. We know it's safe. We need just to test what's the best dosage and other things, or what is the timing, how many times per year, per week, per day should be administered.
How long will the project take?
To finish with the mouse model, let's say 2 years is a realistic plan, not to be too optimistic.
No, I was curious of the missense, of the splicing, of what you do. Yes, how can I help? Is there anything I can do?
I think you're doing a really great job having all this information and organizing teams around the world that can collaborate together to find a cure for this disease. And what you can do is put us in contact, as you're already doing. So this is really accelerating science and progress of this project in general. And thank you very much for this.
No, thank you for doing the hard bits. I'm doing the easier bits. Coordinating the teams or coordinating the projects for the association is fairly simple, in a way. Scientists are open to work with each other, and what I do is really keeping all parties informed of where or how the research is going. UCL told me building a patient registry, building a strong patient community can be of help, because let's be optimistic, when we head into clinical trials, we will need to know where the patients are, who they are, what is the clinical state of the patients, etc., etc. So for recruiting to clinical trials, it's much better if the association already has a strong patient community. Same for policy change. If we want to venture to policy change and be an advocate in rare disease, a strong patient community is something that can be very powerful also with the regulators and also with policymakers. It was really exciting to find the first family and to be connecting. The first family we had a discussion with is actually in Russia, and since then we have found other families in China, in the US. And the first parent meeting happened, I think, 2 weeks ago. It was really emotional, really uplifting. It was really a mixture of emotions. I came out from that meeting crying, and crying not because I felt sad. I was crying because it gave me hope, and it gives me tremendous amount of strength of doing what we do every day, advancing the research, doing the fundraising, because I can see there are so many other families, patients out there that are now going to be standing with us. I no longer feel alone, which is incredibly powerful.